Today I've brought you one of the most beloved childhood movies, The Maze Runner. Before we begin, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. A teenage boy suddenly wakes up inside a large underground elevator filled with supplies. He has no memory of who he is or how he got there. As he slowly looks around, a frightened pig startles him, making him panic. Moments later, the elevator reaches the surface and the doors slide open. As soon as the doors open, dozens of boys gather around the elevator, staring at the newcomer. One of them, Glade, jumps inside, grabs the confused boy, and pulls him out. Terrified, the boy immediately tries to run away, hoping to escape. However, he quickly realizes that he's trapped inside a small open field surrounded by enormous stone walls, with no visible way out. Not long afterward, the boys take him to one of the buildings in the settlement. Their leader, Albie, begins asking him a few questions, but the frightened boy explains that he can't remember anything at all. Albie calmly tells him that this is completely normal. Every boy who arrives here loses all of his memories. The only thing they eventually remember is their own name, which is usually after a day or two. After the newcomer promises not to run away again, Albie takes him outside and gives him a tour of the place. The boys have built an entire community inside this small clearing. Everyone has a specific job that helps the group survive. Some hunt for food, others build shelters, prepare meals, grow crops, or handle different daily tasks needed to keep the community alive. Everything they can't produce themselves arrives through the giant elevator they call the box. Once every month, the box delivers fresh supplies along with a new teenage boy who, just like everyone else, arrives with no memories of his past. None of them know who keeps sending the supplies or why they've been brought to this mysterious place. While exploring the area, the newcomer notices a huge, intimidating gate built into one of the massive stone walls. Albie immediately explains the three most important rules everyone must follow. Always do your share of the work, never intentionally hurt another glader, and never enter the gate under any circumstances. Just then, two boys named Ben and Minho emerge from beyond the gate. Confused, the newcomer wonders why they are allowed to go through a place that's forbidden to everyone else. Chuck explains that only a handful of specially chosen boys are allowed to enter because they are the runners. Every day, the runners race into the enormous maze beyond the walls, searching for a way out and trying to map every path before sunset. Curious, the newcomer walks closer to the gate to get a better look. Before he can reach it, Gally angrily shoves him to the ground, reminding him not to break the rules. Frustrated, the newcomer demands an explanation, while the other boys quickly gather around to calm the situation before it turns into a fight. Their argument is suddenly interrupted when the massive maze begins to move. The gigantic stone walls shift with a thunderous roar, and the huge gate slowly closes for the night. That evening, the boys hold a small celebration to welcome the newcomer into their community. During the gathering, Newt explains that every morning, the runners enter the maze to continue exploring it and updating the maps they have been creating in hopes of finding an escape. For the past 3 years, the runners have searched every corner of the maze for an escape route, but they still haven't found a way out. Just then, a strange mechanical sound echoes from deep inside the maze. Newt explains that the maze changes every single night. The walls shift into a completely new layout, making yesterday's path useless. If the runners fail to return before the gates close at sunset, they're forced to spend the night inside the maze. No one has ever survived a night in there because terrifying creatures known as grievers hunt down and kill anyone left behind. A little later, Thomas accidentally bumps into Gally while Gally is arguing with another boy. Gally takes it as a challenge and asks Thomas if he wants to fight. The other boys immediately form a circle around them. The rules are simple. Whoever forces the other person out of the circle wins. The fight begins, and Gally immediately shows his experience. He easily overpowers Thomas while mocking him and calling him insulting nicknames. But after a short struggle, Thomas surprises everyone by grabbing Gally and throwing him to the ground. The crowd is stunned. Furious, Gally quickly gets back up and retaliates with a powerful kick, knocking Thomas down. As Thomas struggles to his feet, something suddenly clicks in his mind. He finally remembers his own name. His name is Thomas. That night, Thomas has a strange dream. He sees a mysterious laboratory and hears the voice of a woman repeating the words, "Wicked is good." The next morning, Albie takes Thomas to the wall where the names of every boy who has ever arrived in the Glade have been carved into the stone. After adding his own name, Thomas notices that several names have been crossed out, marking those who have died. Later, while collecting fertilizer in the forest, Thomas discovers a graveyard filled with human bones. Suddenly, Ben appears. He looks terribly sick, growling like an animal and barely acting human. Ben stares at Thomas with terrifying eyes and suddenly screams, "I've seen you before. You did this. This is all your fault." Without warning, he lunges at Thomas. Desperate to defend himself, Thomas grabs a skull from the ground and strikes Ben before running for his life. Ben chases him through the forest, refusing to give up. Just as Thomas is about to be thrown off a hill, he cries out for help. At the last second, Newt arrives and knocks Ben away, saving Thomas. The other boys quickly rush over and work together to restrain Ben. While holding him down, they discover a horrifying sting wound on his body. Begging for mercy, Ben pleads with them not to abandon him, but everyone already knows what's happening. Albie explains to Thomas that Ben is going through something they call the changing. It happens when someone is stung by a griever inside the maze. The infection spreads through the victim's body and mind, slowly driving them insane. Knowing there's no cure and fearing he'll become even more dangerous, the boys make a heartbreaking decision. Just before the maze gates close, they force the crying Ben back into the maze and leave him there. That night, Ben's name is carved out from the memorial wall. As Thomas sleeps, he has another disturbing dream. Once again, he sees the mysterious laboratory and the same unknown girl who seems to be helping him during some kind of experiment. The following morning, Thomas notices Albie entering the maze, even though he isn't a runner. Newt explains that Albie has gone to follow Ben's tracks in an attempt to discover where he was stung. Newt also reveals that Albie was the very first boy ever sent to the Glade. Before anyone else arrived, he was forced to survive there completely alone for nearly a month until the box finally began bringing more boys. As the day passes, the other boys begin to grow worried. Albie and the runners still haven't returned, and sunset is approaching fast. Just as the massive stone gates are about to close, Minho finally appears, carrying an unconscious and badly injured Albie on his shoulders. Because of Albie's condition, Minho is moving far too slowly to reach the entrance in time. Sending more boys into the maze to rescue them is strictly against the rules, but Thomas refuses to stand by and do nothing. Just before the massive stone gates close completely, he rushes into the maze. Once inside, Thomas examines Albie and realizes that he has been stung by a griever. Minho admits that he had no choice but to leave Albie behind because carrying him had slowed him down too much. Moments later, the terrifying cries of a griever echo through the maze. Thomas insists that they have to protect Albie, but Minho tells him there's nowhere they can hide. As Thomas looks around, he notices thick vines climbing one of the enormous stone walls. An idea immediately comes to him. Working together, Thomas and Minho tie a rope around Albie and begin pulling him up, lifting him off the ground until they can suspend him high between the vines, hoping the griever won't notice him. Before they can finish, a griever suddenly appears. Minho immediately runs for his life. Before hiding, Thomas makes sure the rope is secured tightly so Albie won't fall. The griever crawls past Thomas without noticing him. As he watches carefully, Thomas realizes that the creature isn't entirely organic. Much of its body is made of strange mechanical parts, making it look like a horrifying machine fused with flesh. After the griever moves away, Thomas quietly climbs back up to secure the rope more firmly to the branches above. But before he can finish, the griever suddenly returns, forcing him to hide once again. He waits patiently until it leaves. Just as Thomas believes the danger has passed, something sticky drips onto his shoulder. Confused, he slowly looks up. The griever is crawling across the walls directly above him. The monster drops to the ground and immediately charges after Thomas. Thomas sprints through the maze as fast as he can, leading the creature into a long, narrow passage. The griever keeps closing the distance, leaving him with almost nowhere to run. Running out of options, Thomas begins climbing the thick vines covering the wall. He manages to pull himself onto the edge of a higher corridor, but he's trapped between the griever and a massive drop. With no other choice, Thomas takes a huge leap across the gap. At the very last second, he manages to grab onto the vines on the opposite wall. The griever attempts the same jump and lands right behind him. It extends one of its mechanical arms, revealing a long, deadly stinger, and thrusts it toward Thomas, determined to inject him before he can escape. Thomas narrowly avoids the griever's deadly stinger, but the creature's massive weight causes the vines to snap, sending both of them crashing to the ground. As the griever becomes tangled in the broken vines, Thomas seizes the opportunity and runs. He soon reunites with Minho. At that moment, the maze begins to shift once again. The enormous stone walls start moving, and Thomas quickly comes up with another plan. Instead of running away immediately, he waits for the griever to catch up. Once the creature is close enough, Thomas taunts it and lures it into chasing him straight toward the narrowing gap between two massive walls that are sliding shut. At the very last second, Thomas dives through the opening. The griever follows, but before it can escape, the giant stone walls slam together, crushing the creature to death. The following morning, the boys are astonished to see Thomas and Minho emerge from the maze, carrying Albie back with them. They are even more shocked to learn that Thomas's plan actually succeeded, and that he managed to kill a griever, something no one had ever done before. Later, the group gathers to discuss everything that happened. Gally insists that Thomas should be punished for breaking the Glade's rules by entering the maze. However, Minho argues that Thomas has earned the right to become a runner. Everyone agrees with Minho except Gally. Their meeting is suddenly interrupted by the sound of the box rising from below. Everyone is confused because it isn't time for the monthly delivery. When they look inside, they find an unconscious teenage girl, the very same girl Thomas has been seeing in his dreams. Newt discovers a note in her hand that reads, "She's the last one, ever." Without warning, the girl briefly wakes up, looks directly at Thomas, calls out his name, and then immediately loses consciousness again. After she's taken to one of the huts to rest, Thomas tells the others that they've finally proven it's possible to survive a night inside the maze. He believes this is their chance to find the answers they've all been searching for, and he wants to return to the maze as soon as possible. Eventually, he convinces 3 of the runners to join him. The team enters the maze and soon finds the dead griever crushed between the moving walls. Working together, they cut off one of the creature's mechanical limbs and discover a strange device inside it that emits the same mysterious sound they've been hearing throughout the maze. Later, back in one of the huts, they examine the device more closely. While inspecting its mechanical components, they notice a series of letters and markings engraved on its parts, suggesting that the grievers were deliberately built rather than naturally created. The boys finally realize that whoever sent them to the Glade is also responsible for creating the grievers. Determined to uncover more clues, Thomas wants to continue exploring the maze. Gally, however, argues that Thomas deserves to be punished for repeatedly breaking the Glade's rules. Newt reaches a compromise. Thomas will spend one night in the pit as punishment, but starting the next day, he will officially become a runner. Later, Minho takes Thomas to the hut where all of the maze maps and models have been stored over the years. He explains that every section of the maze has been carefully mapped, yet despite 3 years of exploration, they have never found an exit. Now that they have recovered the mysterious device from the dead griever, Minho believes they may finally have a real chance. The maps reveal another important pattern. The outer sections of the maze are numbered from 1 to 8. Every night when the maze shifts, a different numbered section opens, always following the same repeating sequence. Meanwhile, the mysterious girl finally wakes up. Startled and frightened, she climbs onto a watchtower to keep her distance from everyone, throwing objects at anyone who comes too close. But the moment she sees Thomas, she immediately calms down. Thomas climbs up to speak with her. Like everyone else, she remembers almost nothing except her own name. Her name is Teresa. The others tell Thomas that while she was unconscious, she repeatedly called his name in her sleep. Even so, Teresa admits she still doesn't know who Thomas is. Thomas explains everything that has happened in the Glade. In return, Teresa reveals that the only memories she has are strange visions that closely resemble Thomas's dreams of the mysterious laboratory. She also discovers 2 small syringes in her pocket containing a glowing blue liquid. Each syringe is marked with the same 4 mysterious letters. Believing the liquid may be the cure for the griever sting, Thomas suggests injecting Albie with it. As they prepare to do so, Albie suddenly becomes terrified and repeatedly cries, "You were never supposed to be here." The boys hold him down while Teresa injects him with the blue serum. Almost immediately, Albie falls unconscious. Later that evening, Gally locks Thomas inside the pit to serve his punishment. After some time, Chuck secretly sneaks over with food for him. He also shows Thomas a small wooden toy that he carved himself. Chuck admits that he can't remember his parents anymore, but he still dreams of seeing them again one day and giving them the little toy. Thomas promises Chuck that he will find a way to get everyone out of the Glade, so Chuck can finally fulfill that dream. The following morning, as soon as the gates open, Thomas and Minho head back into the maze. With Minho leading the way, they race through corridor after corridor, crossing several sections until they reach Sector 7. There, they discover Ben's abandoned clothes lying on the ground. It becomes clear that a griever must have dragged him away. Just then, the mysterious device begins making the same strange sound again. Thomas realizes it isn't random. It seems to be guiding them. Every time they move in the correct direction, the signal grows stronger. After following it for a while, they arrive at a place Minho has never seen before in all his years as a runner. A massive bridge stretches across a deep chasm leading to a huge stone structure at the far end. When they finally reach the structure, the device activates on its own, unlocking a hidden doorway concealed within the wall. Suddenly, a bright scanning light sweeps across Thomas and Minho. An alarm begins blaring as the hidden chamber starts sealing itself shut. Realizing they're out of time, the two immediately sprint back through Sector 7, trying to escape before the maze changes again. For a brief moment, they separate and run in opposite directions to avoid the shifting walls. Just as they're about to leave Sector 7, the ground suddenly splits open beneath them, and massive sections of the maze begin collapsing. As the entire maze continues transforming around them, they dodge moving walls and shifting corridors, running as fast as they possibly can. In the end, they have only one option: dash between two enormous walls that are rapidly closing together. They barely make it through before the passage seals shut behind them. A short time later, Thomas and Minho return safely to the Glade. They excitedly tell everyone they've finally found a possible way out. However, Gally remains suspicious, arguing that it could easily be a trap. The disagreement quickly turns into an argument. Before it can escalate, Teresa arrives with unexpected news. Albie has finally regained consciousness. Everyone rushes to see him, still shaken by everything he remembered during the changing. Albie warns them that they can't escape. He says all of his memories have come back, and he reveals something shocking. Thomas was always one of the people behind the maze. Before anyone can question him further, another terrifying discovery interrupts the conversation. The massive maze gates never close. Instead, new entrances begin opening all around the Glade. Thomas wants to come up with a plan, but there's no time. Grievers begin pouring out of the maze. Everyone immediately runs for the forest, searching desperately for places to hide. Soon, horrifying screams echo through the Glade as the Grievers attack one boy after another. A small group manages to lock themselves inside the box for safety. When another boy outside cries out for help, a nearby Griever hears him and drags him away before anyone can save him. Thomas, Teresa, and a handful of survivors hide inside the gardens. As more and more boys are either captured or stung, the remaining survivors realize they have to keep moving if they want to reunite with Albie and the others. At one point, a Griever blocks their path. Thinking quickly, Teresa throws a lantern at the creature, setting it on fire long enough for everyone to escape. The group continues running, rescuing a few more boys along the way. When another Griever charges toward them, Thomas steps in front of everyone, prepared to face it himself. At that moment, the keepers surround the creature and attack it with their spears, buying the others enough time to sprint into the main homestead and barricade the door. The Griever repeatedly slams against the entrance but can't break through. Instead, it climbs onto the roof, tears its way inside, and snatches another boy. A second Griever then swings between the buildings and grabs Chuck. Without hesitation, the others rush to save him. As the monster prepares its deadly stinger, Albie charges forward and smashes into the Griever, preventing it from injecting Chuck. He keeps striking the creature until Chuck is finally released. A moment later, another Griever suddenly appears and grabs Albie. Before he's carried away, Albie looks at Thomas and gives him one final order: get everyone out of the Glade. Then the Grievers retreat and the terrifying noises finally stop. When the survivors step outside, they realize the horrifying truth. Only they, and the boys who hid inside the box, are still alive. Overwhelmed with anger and grief, Gally walks up to Thomas and punches him in the face, blaming him for everything that has happened. Desperate to recover the answers hidden in his lost memories, Thomas deliberately injects himself with a Griever sting and allows himself to go through the changing. During his visions, he once again sees the mysterious laboratory. He remembers Teresa, several of the boys, and an unknown woman connected to the experiments. When Thomas finally wakes up, he finds himself inside the pit beside Teresa, who has saved his life by injecting him with the remaining vial of the blue serum. Soon afterward, Newt, Minho, and Chuck arrive, eager to hear everything Thomas has remembered. Newt, Minho, and Chuck tell Thomas that Gally has convinced many of the remaining boys that Thomas is responsible for everything that has happened. Thomas then reveals inside the laboratory, the computers and security cameras confirm that the scientists had been monitoring the Glade and the children the entire time. Thomas presses a button, and a recorded message from Dr. Ava Page appears on the screen. Dr. Ava explains that she is the director of WCKD. She tells them that if they are watching this video, it means they have successfully completed the maze trial. She explains that the purpose of the trial was to study how the human brain functions under extreme stress. However, because not everyone agreed with these experiments, the project continued in secret. At the end of the recording, she shoots herself and the video ends. The children stand in shock. Just then, another door opens. Before they can react, Gally appears behind them. Teresa realizes that he is still under the influence of the Griever sting. As Minho throws his spear at Gally, Gally fires his gun. Tragically, the bullet strikes Chuck. Before dying, Chuck gives Thomas his small toy and thanks him for never giving up on him. It is one of the saddest moments in the movie. While everyone is mourning Chuck, a group of heavily armed people enters the laboratory. With Wolf, they quickly escort the surviving children out of the building and load them into a helicopter waiting outside. But the story does not end there. Dr. Ava Page is revealed to still be alive. She tells her colleagues that Thomas and the others have passed the trial and officially announces Phase 2 begins now. This brings the first movie to an end with a major twist and sets up the next chapter, the end. If you like the story, click the like button, subscribe, and add the movie you want to the comments section to be linked to a new movie.